when in reality, that if we would have grown up and learned to govern ourselves, we wouldn't be in this position that we are in.
Yep. That's
So
true.
taking accountability for what we have done instead of being in the place of victimhood, that is a very challenging place. But once you have the full conviction of it, you realize that, you know what, I accept accountability for what I did in my past and how I gave up my sovereign authority, and I gave it over because I didn't realize that there was something else. But now that the other side of it has presented itself to me through the languages, and see the gift that is being offered to us in our inheritance as sovereign beings, now I can make my stand. And so I don't think it's ever too late to make that sovereign stand, because it's a conviction that you become, and then you live it out, regardless what other people project upon you. Because how we project back is unconditional love, because we can see where they're at, because that's where we once were. And so there's a level of understanding and compassion for their hearts on both sides, because they're both extremely passionate about what they believe in. And you know what? I can honor and respect their passion. I'm passionate too, but I'm coming from this place.
Yeah. Well, they don't have the information and the peace. They're not in that place to even go there. So, yeah.
And that's where I think that we can come in as teachers of light, because as we are walking in a different way, and when this polarization continues to occur and we can hold our shalom, there's going to be those that are going to say, how can you do this in the middle? Just like in the English narrative, when Yahshua was sleeping in the middle of the storm, right? How can you do that? Well, when you've reconciled it, when you've reconciled both sides into oneness, then you live in that place of just not being rattled anymore, and not taking the sides, because you've learned what you needed to, and you extract the wisdom from it. And now you're coming from a completely different perspective. And just because it's their chaos, it doesn't have to be mine. I'm above those waters now because of the work that I put in and what I had to wrestle through. And this gives me an advantage point of perspective so that I can assist another, because I couldn't assist another when I was in the waters of chaos. That's how people get drowned.
Right. Yep.
So I think this is good discussion. Not a very popular one, but a very good discussion for us, because sovereignty is huge.
Yeah.
And that's what that's what the whole thing is about in becoming one, is sovereign, autonomous beings that love one another in unconditional love. Practical application right now. So any other comments on that?
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. I think it's just that from what I remember, there's a verse about the intention was for us to become a nation of priests, and it wasn't to be governed by. So anyways.
That's exactly right, Jesse. Exodus 19:5.
Yeah, so I guess just in the remembering that, which is true, it's taking full responsibility. At least I can only speak for myself, but it's in choosing every day to take full responsibility for myself. And raising to a place of that set apartness in which I have full control of myself, and I can in the sustainable ways. So
I totally agree. And that's a Melchizedek. That's what we are working on in that place of becoming, in being, is Melchizedek's. So I think I appreciate your take on that, Jesse. I really do, because I see you doing that, and I see you taking steps in that every day, and it's awesome to see. It really is. So thank you for sharing. I do have a teaching. This morning I had a direction that I was going to go in, and then the Spirit took me in another direction. It's all continued, but the Spirit had me look at the passage in the book of John about worshipers, that the Father's looking for those that would worship it in spirit and truth. because
Yeah.
he's spirit and truth, right? And so I felt that. I actually felt that for a couple days, and even last night I was like, yep, no, I need to dig on that Sabbath morning and get that figured out so we can talk about that. And as I started doing it, the Spirit said, no, go down a little further, read a little further, read a little further, read a little further. And I got down to about 20 more verses, and I had probably one of the most, I don't know, it was a huge epiphany. It was extremely personal to me, for reasons that I'm not going to share. But for those, you two will understand because of some of my previous incarnation stuff that I've shared with you as to
Mhm.
why it hit me so hard. And we're going to go into that today. But it was deeply profound. It wounded me in a good way. And Ken was trying to talk to me this morning, and I just couldn't get past it. It was like, no, I need to go remove myself and work on this for a little bit, because it was one of those deeply profound wounding shifts that once you
Mhm.
experience it and the language touches you, you have to just kind of walk away and let it do what it needs to reorient your perspective from that revelation. So I'm going to go into that today, and hopefully it will be something that will bless you like it did me. It may not be as grandiose as it was for me on the personal level, but I still think it'll touch you. I mean, Jesse did hear some of it, but I want to show it to you through the language, if that will work, if you're
That's
okay with
awesome.
that.
Love it. Yeah.
So this is going to be a lot of word. This is going to be a tremendous amount of word. And so if we need to stop, we need to stop. If this has to be a 2-part series, then we'll let it be a 2-part series. It'd be great to land the plane, but if we don't get to land the plane, I'm not going to be heartbroken, because I think that any discussion that we have on this is going to be fantastic no matter what it is. So feel free to ask questions as we go, and I will try not to lose my train of thought. I don't think I will, but we'll just start. So this one is called, let me reorient my pictures so that I can see better. There we go. Worshiping in Spirit and Truth, the now element. So this is initially how I started and what I was going towards, and you'll see how it took off from this moment on. So the verse that really started this was John 4:23. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father is seeking such to worship him. So we're going to talk about a few things before I move on to the verse that I really want to land the plane on. And we're going to talk about these words that I've underlined here. And the rest of it is fantastic, but this is setting the foundation to take it to the verse that specifically is dealing with the work of Yahshua. So on the very first word, we have the word but, and it's Aleph Lamed Aleph. And so one of the definitions in English of the word but is used to indicate the impossibility of anything other than what is being said. So this is declaring something that there's no other possibility than what is being declared right here. So I appreciate that. And so in seeing this, as an Aleph Lamed Aleph, we have 2 Alephs, which in what we know is that with the pattern of the Ark of the Covenant, we have mother represented on one side and father represented on the other side, and these 2 are one. So that is a representation of the Aleph. So we have them divided even though they are one, and then right in the middle we have a teacher of light, a shepherd, teaching shepherd. So mother and father's job as oneness, as an impossibility of anything else, is by having both of their teachings, one will become a teaching shepherd of light. You guys tracking with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. The next word means to come and bring. So again, the way the sentences are structured in mechanical translations is definitely a lot different than how we structure them in English. And so in English, this is coming, and then the next word will be our. So come and bring is what this Aramaic word is saying. Come and bring. And come and bring the Aleph Tav, the strong leader of the covenant. who will bring forth the vision and will give to the open hand that receives, so one can be taught and teach, yoked and tamed, so that they can too have the thousandfold anointing and become one. So what is happening here is we have something it's a impossibility for anything else to happen when you receive mother and father's teaching, as they come to bring the language all of through the Tav that's going to empower you so that you can become one. Then we move into the word, the hour. And I went ahead and I put on here on this top left, you can see it, where it says, this is from the Targums, that the root of this word means a moment, while, hour, or especially the 12th portion of the day or night. So this would be like either at midnight or at high noon. So the greatest amount of light and the greatest amount of darkness, which I think is really fascinating because this is talking about duality.
Mm.
So in this word having to do with hour and time, that we're talking about the greatest amount of light and the greatest amount of darkness. And that is exactly what we're heading into. So in forwarding this, now we have the word time. This is the actual Hebrew word for time. And when you chase it down, so again, we're going from Aramaic to the Hebrew root because they're connected, mother and father. So we go back to mother's teaching, and the root of this word is perpetuity. So in advancement, in perpetuity, eternity, there is going to be the revealing of the purpose for going through the door of the inner man, because the doorway is always connected to our heart, where the kingdom is. The kingdom lies within. So there's a knowing and there's a revealing process so one can see the purpose of the door, which then leads to perpetuity. And it's interesting because it leads to perpetuity in time so that you can actually find the covenant, because notice that the word time then morphed to a tav. So when you enter through the door of the inward heart of the inner man, you get to have perpetuity to do it over and over again until you receive the mark of the Father's covenant. So that's kind of a pause moment to think about that as to why the cycles of life are the way they are, because it's a learning process of continually going through that inward door until we receive that mark, that sine wave frequency of elevation. Because why? Because we went through the consuming fire of the teachings that empowered us to lift our flesh, so that we would have the eyes to see the purpose of the covenant, which is to become one.
In time.
In time. And so keep that in mind, because we're going to go into the next word. It's interesting how they choose to translate it in English, because the word that we just discussed is hour, right? And they're saying the hour is coming, which we can see it's going to be the time of the greatest light and the greatest darkness, and the full potential of dualities being manifest. Full potential of light, full potential of dark. This is the time that we're talking about. Then we go to the next word, which is hasha. And hasha means now. So we can see in English, and now is. So the time is now. Again, verifying it, because we live in the light and dark. We are at the extremes right now. And so the word for now means in the time where we would be connecting to Mother in humility, where it is being revealed to us that which is necessary of what the consuming fire does to raise our flesh nature so that we can become one. And of course, Aleph has all of those beautiful attributes of being yoked and tamed, taught so you teach, you're associated to as God, with one with God, and having the thousandfold anointing. So you can see the progression from those first four words. It's like, whoa, okay, there's a lot going on here. So the language is coming, it's empowering us. It's gonna happen if you find the mother and father's teaching. You're gonna see the purpose in time of why we go through the consuming fire. so that we can be sealed as one. And the time is now, in the greatest time of polarities. And then the next word is the word for is. And I wanted to point this out to you because this is the morphing of the Aleph Tav from the Old Testament. So when you look into the Tanakh and you see the untranslatable word, just Aleph Tav, Aleph Yod Tav is the equivalent to the Aleph Tav of the Old Testament, but it does have an addition to it. And so this is what's crazy. So Strong's 853 in Hebrew is Aleph Tav, but this root of Aleph Yod Tav is this word, yesh, to stand out or exist, and as a copula for hayah. And hayah, a copula means connecting to. So yish is connected to hayah. And we've talked about that many times, about that being the root to Yod He Vav He, and that in essence, Vav He Yod He is connecting to the two revelations of Mother and Father that empower you within so that you can become. So this word yish is connected to hayah, which is connected to becoming. So Mother teaches you how to become, and then when you get to this point, it is to stand out or exist as one who has become. Did I lose you guys there, or does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Kind of tracking?
I'm always kind of tracking.
That's okay. So it's a progression from becoming to being. So the yesh is the actual part where we are now being, where hayah, he yod he, is the blueprint for becoming, to become, to come to pass. Now when we see yesh, which is connected to hayah, it now means that you stand out and exist.
Okay. So yeah, how I was falling, it was like this whole train of thought is like going through doors.
Yes.
To get to a certain point where
yes,
you've become.
Yes, exactly. So again, this is an Aramaic scripture. So whenever we're looking at Aramaic scriptures, we have to remember that we came through the door of Mother to get to this point, because this is now Father's portion. Okay. So there's a purpose of what Mother did to prepare us. And this root, yesh, is actually where this Aleph Yod Tav comes from. But notice that what is left, this is the crazy part, what is left in it. Come on, why aren't you doing it? Come on. There we go. So there's the Yod here. This is the power, means, and direction that is given to us. So we hold out our hand to receive it. We grasp a hold of it. And then it's the consuming fire that we go through. And it's through that process that it then gets transferred. And the only thing remaining is the vision. And why is that? Because we've already been consumed. And what is being consumed? The beast ego nature.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the sheen is no longer necessary, because it's already done its work. Because now we're being. Instead of becoming, we're now being without the beast. And because it's between the Aleph and the Tav, so it's the strong leader of the covenant that has been empowered within, because they allowed the consuming fire to consume the beast nature. And so now they have the power, means, and direction of the right hand from the Father, and they will be revealed as such who stand out and exist.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to track with that, Regina?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I can't see your faces. All I can see is just the screen. So I don't know if you're able to track it or not. So that's why I have to ask, because if we don't, I want to make sure that we keep enough time on what we're sharing before I move on, because this is really the foundation of where I want to take us to.
That seems like a pretty powerful word.
It is. It's extremely powerful. And that's why meditating on all of these as we dig them out shifts us, because of the vibrational frequency and what it does to our inner man, into our heart, so that we can go from the becoming to the being. And hence why Aramaic is so important. So this is going to take us now to the last point before we move on is this little tiny word that just means is. And this is what I found fascinating, because I'm just geeking out, looking around at these words, trying to figure out what I'm going to share with you before I got to the place where I'm going to land the plane. And this word is translated just is. And anybody that knows Hebrew can already see what this is attached to. But it also means this same exact spelling in Aramaic means arrow, projectile. So think of Adam Kadmon. Think of the path of the mystic. The path of the mystic is called the path of the arrow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's connected to this. As a ger, as a sojourner, as one who is a foreigner. And so this goes back to what we were talking about being in this world, but not of it, as being an arrow. And notice that it has a yod in the middle of it. So as a sojourner, one who is traveling through, but is not of, we have been given power, means, and direction within our heart so that we can take that path of the arrow and go through that mystic journey as we are studying the languages of light, because now is the time for us to do this. It is the now season, and it will happen. It will come to pass as we become being because of what is being given to us to steward and to activate in.
So the root is a sojourner, foreigner.
Yes.
Okay. And then
Taking it to the Hebrew root system, because
okay.
mother, so this is mother. And so if we want to go a little deeper, we're looking at the Gimel are those who walk towards water that will be gathered as the teachers who are once poor and destitute that have been raised to become first fruit leaders as the capstone, the headstone.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty profound.
And then the arrow projectile, that's the Aramaic.
Yes.
Or the
Yes.
extension.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so he is letting us know that through this time and now it's taking the path of the arrow so that we can hit the mark in becoming to being now.
Cool.
So here's the verse that really rocked me. This is the one that completely obliterated me, ravished me, took me down to a sobbing puddle that I had to like reorient myself for at least an hour, if not longer. I had to go and meditate for a while on this one. So Jesus saith unto them, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish his work. So we're going to go through this. I'm not going to try to rush it, because we're going to actually go through this word by word and pretty much letter by letter to really see what this verse is saying, because it's really the last two words that rocked me. But again, building a foundation so that we can comprehend it, so we can understand it as it pierces our heart. So I wanted to first address Yahshua, because Yahshua in his name, there was a difference from how his name transferred from the Tanakh to the New Testament in Aramaic. And you'll hear many people that will call him Yehoshua, and that was the Hebrew equivalent, and that's actually what Joshua was called, that led them into the promised land after Moshe had passed away. But let's take a look and see what his name actually means. So it comes from Yasha, to be open, wide, or free, to be safe, and to free or succor, which means to give assistance or aid to. And then it also has the word shua, which means to be free, a halu, a cry for help, or freedom from some trouble. And so these two words are within his name that we see in the Aramaic. The difference is, take a look here. This is Yehoshua. This is what his name was in Hebrew in the Old Testament. Can you see the difference?
Where did you just put that one? Which one?
Down, the one Yehoshua is in between the Shua.
I see.
Yehoshua.
The one in the center.
Yep. So when you look at Yahshua's name from Yasha, the difference here is that he's pierced in his heart. He's connected to his heart, which is connected to the root, which is connected to the heart of the Father. So he became pierced, which then allowed him to access, to be able, he was now free. His heart was free to love, hence why he was walking in unconditional love. And he had the freedom to do that. And he had been freed from the trouble of not being pierced. Because our trouble is when we forget that we're still connected to the Father when we go through the veil of forgetting. But when you take a look at Yehoshua, the Hey Vav is not in his name.
No. But he is pierced there too.
It is pierced.
So what did you say that was from the Old Testament? The
Yes.
Yehoshua?
Yehoshua.
Mhm.
You'll
His
hear,
name
you'll
isn't
hear-
in
yeah,
the
you'll
Old
hear a
Testament?
lot of people, yes, you'll hear a lot of people that will compare his name, and they'll actually call him Yehoshua, because in the New Testament in Greek, it being Isa, it's different. And so they carry it over as from Yehoshua. But when Yeshua came, he didn't come with the Hey Vav. He had to find it. I'm purposely stopping to let us think about that.
So he had to reconnect with the Father?
Yeah, he became pierced, but notice that it's Yod Hey Vav Shua. The Hey Vav is, there's a revelation that would fill him up, right? Because the Vav is the Kolam Meli, which means a filled up Vav that is set above and set apart. When he showed up, he had to find that which filled him up, just like we do. Is that making any sense, or did I lose you guys?
It's not totally clear to me. I'm trying to
Okay, he was
piece this
born as a
together.
man. He was born as a man. He was born as a
Mhm.
child, as an infant. He
Mhm.
went through the veil of forgetting, just like we did.
Mhm.
So it had to be revealed to him that which was necessary to fill him up so that he could become a free man and to be able to help and give assistance or aid to people in the time of need by his very own becoming. Does that still not make sense?
No, well, I mean, I'm going back to why is his name in the Old Testament, thinking like, and what was the transference in the morphing that,
Types and shadows. So
okay.
Yehoshua, Joshua, the son of Nun, which is Nun Vav Nun, the activity of life, he took them into the promised land. But that promised land was an earthly material plane. They were supposed to go up and not out. So in Yehoshua, he was given, his name was actually changed, and we could actually go and look at that at another date. But before he took them into the promised land, his name was changed. And his name was changed to that lower area between the Shua and the Yasha. His name was Yehoshua, because he had to have that revelation within him and be filled up so that he could lead the people into the promised land. So what I find fascinating is that when Yeshua came to bring us into the promised land of above, spiritual, that he didn't have that when he came. So Yehoshua was given it to take him into the earthly promised land. You would have thought that Yeshua would have been born with it and he would have been called Yehoshua from the get-go. But he had to go through the same path as mother as we do in order to be filled up so that he then could receive the fathers to be able to teach it, coming as a demonstration of being mother. But he had to go through the same teaching, the same process as we do. So therefore, by saying that, we are qualified to become just like him, because he was born as a man, finding his way, just like we are. so that he could be found, so that we could be found.
Yeah, I mean, it just attests to him being a representative of how to do it.
Exactly.
And he came in with,
No cheating. He had no cheating. He didn't come in with an identity of what it was already placed within him. He had to find it, he had to discover it, and it had to be revealed within him through the same channels that we have to go through. Then that way, it's honest, it's organic. If he found the way, then the rest of us can find our way as well. Are we good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, power, means, and direction was given to him so that he could go through the consuming process, which is necessary to lift his flesh to the spiritual path that he would have to wrestle while in the material realm so that his heart could be pierced. It was that consuming fire that raised him up from poor to destitute to a leader through compression of light within the circle of time so that he would have the ability to see that which was necessary to raise his flesh.
mm-hmm.
That's what allowed him to be free and safe and be able to help, because he understood the process, because he went through it.
Yeah.
So open and wide, and now he is free from the trouble that he was in, and he can respond to our cries when we need help. Find that just fascinating, just in the study of his name. Now let's talk about meat. Well, I guess we're going to start from the beginning first. So when it says that he came to speak, say, announce, and affirm, Amar, if you guys remember, and I don't know if you're connecting to it, if we went through those teachings about the lamb, Amara, followed the lamb wherever he would lead. Amar is really a mother who comes to raise the poor and destitute up so that they can be leaders. That's the job of mother, of saying and speaking and announcing and affirming to those that are poor and destitute in the spirit to raise them up so that they can lead. That's the whole purpose of this word.
Okay.
The next word, generally in its root, is a lamed that stands by itself. Just a lamed. And they say it means 2 and 4. But we know that the lamed is a teaching shepherd. It's one who has the staff of authority that goes and urges others on. So he came as mother to raise us up as a teaching shepherd who was going to bring a revelation to us that would allow us to be able to connect to the Father. And then the Sharuk vow point is the fire that raises us up so we can compress light while we are in the flesh and while he was in the flesh. That's why he came. That's what he was speaking and telling us. Does that make sense there? Like I said, this is a lot of words. This is a lot of letters, but we can see the fullness of what this verse is saying when we get to the end of this. So as mother, go ahead.
There's no vowel points. There's just the dagesh, right?
Yeah, the vowel point that is within the vav is a shuruk. It's a shin, resh, vav, kuf.
Okay.
So, we'll be teaching about those more later, but that is the consuming fire that raises us up and pierces us while we compress light within the circle of time.
So this is kind of foundational, like what he's speaking right now. This is like he's giving you like step 1 or something for the building. So the teaching, the revelation, what is the dagesh in the center of the vav? That's earth realm to me that speaks, and the noon is still in the earth. So it's like we start here, kind of.
Yeah, and this verse is declaring why he came. That's why this verse is so profound to me. So as a mother, as a representation of mother, he's declaring what he came to do. I'm a teaching shepherd of light that's going to bring a revelation to you so that you can be connected to the Father, but you're going to have to wrestle with your flesh, the spiritual path in the material world. But I'm still going to bring forth the revelation to you. And then, of course, the very next word is Yahshua. So I will come to you to answer your cry because I've done it. I've done it. I've become it. And I had to do it the same way that you guys are doing it. That's why we can trust him, because he had to walk the exact same path that we are. Granted, it was 2,000 years ago, and there were different sets of circumstances, but he still had to tame the beast ego nature, and he had to get rid of it, just like we are. So this is his declaration. So the next word that we're going to be discussing then is we're going to be going over meat. This is what the King James Version calls it meat. In other translations, it's food. The root of this is akal, and it does mean food. It also means to eat. And so when we look at just the root of where it came from mother's portion in the Hebrew, we see that food is that which is presented to you by one who is a teacher that has been taught, so that you can yoke and tame your beast nature, so that you can become one that will grasp a hold of the language, the spoken words that bring forth revelation, so that you can become a teaching shepherd of light. Now, this root also has the word, so we've got the aleph, meaning your single most important thing to do, echad, to become one, kol, so that you can be completed. This is your all. Your all is to become one by the food that you eat. And that is the nourishment that is provided to you from the teachers who have become one, because they were taught and now they teach. So this is your all. This is what we're supposed to do. Eat that which makes you completed, so that you can become one. That's just the root. That's mother's roots. Remember, this is a static potentiality that needs to be activated. So then what is it telling us when we see it now in the Aramaic? Because now we can see that eating of, we have the mem in front. And we know that the mem is the living water teachings of mother and father, because the symbol mem is made of a mem and a mem sophit. So you have to enter into mother's teachings first, which is directly connected to father's teaching, hence why we're looking at Aramaic right now, so that you can be pierced within your heart, having that place of humility and meekness within, because now you've connected to your inner man and you've connected to the heart of the Father, so that you can receive his mark, his sine wave signature frequency, so that you can be given the power of the right hand as one who has grasped it, but also opens their hand to give to others this vision. This is our meat. This is what we eat. This is what Yahshua came to present. Because the scriptures right before this, Yahshua says, I have food that you do not know about. And then the disciples were looking like, did somebody bring him something to eat? And he's telling us what our food is for our becoming. Then this next word they translated as them, but it really means my own. So this is a declaration of those who are his, are those who eat that of the meat, which is the teachings of mother and father that have the sine wave signature frequency that have been empowered. They are the ones that have gone through the door of the inner man, where they received the vision of the mother and have become a teaching shepherd that has been empowered through the vision of the Father. These are those who he calls his own. And then to clarify it, we have that same word that we just broke down in the previous screen. Those who are of being and substance that went through the consuming fire, the strong leaders of the covenant that have been given the power of the right hand. Power means and direction from the Father who will be revealed. That's how they did it. The next word. To do, make, subdue, subject, act, perform, and celebrate. I actually like the word celebrate. We get to this point when he says, these are mine, these are my own, that we can definitely celebrate. But how do we know what is the process of this? It's those who go through the door of their inward man, their inner man, into their heart, where they receive the teachings. So they were taught the ways of those who had been taught that turned to teach, connecting the vision of the higher and the lower realm so that they could become one as the yoked and tamed, being led by the family, now having the eyes to see the purpose, the fountain of the deep, because this is connected to our third eye as well, seeing the purpose of why we would spiritually build our temple through covenant and become a door ourselves. This is a cause for celebration. This is the work that we do because we have become that which he came to present to us. But we had to go through the door of our inward man so that we could become a door for others. And the word that we talk a lot about in our house, in fact, I think we talked about it today on our walk, and we probably talked about it yesterday, is the next word that we're going to discuss that has to do with desire. The root of this word is zava, and it means desire and will. And I just find this fascinating because zava is a zadi bet hey. But if you understand and you know a little bit of the Hebrew, you can actually see another word in here. This is the word
Bam.
This is binah. So think of hakmah and binah, wisdom and understanding.
Very cool.
Yeah. So our desire is what is going to lead us to the place of having understanding and have the ability to discern. That is just super fantastic to me, that it is all based on desire. So if you take that whole top line of what we just declared and why we're going to celebrate, the very first thing that we have to have is we have to have a desire to even do this, which is the whole point of my heart of sharing this with other people, is so that we would have a desire to all enter into this, to be able to see the beauty of what's being presented to us so that we can all celebrate with one another, because we have gone through the door, we've become the door, and now we can assist others and do the greater things that Yahshua said that we would be able to do, because we ate of the meat and it pierced our heart. So in this word for will and desire, we have the zadi here, and this is a path and a journey and a hunt and a chase. But notice this isn't a fallen zadi, this is a risen zadi. So this means one who has taken the spiritual path. They're hunting and chasing that which they need so that they can spiritually build their temple through covenant, allowing them to have the power, means, and direction placed within their heart so that they can raise their flesh, starting in the heart level. Because remember, this noon has been added in the inside of the word. So this is talking about the place where we raise our flesh starts in the heart. That's why the piercing is so important. Because if our heart isn't pierced, if we can't connect to that place of our heart and have our heart chakra begin to open, then we're never going to be able to elevate our flesh and get rid of the beast nature, because it's the spiritual path that must be taken as we go inward. It's not the external manifestation that happens in time. It's about getting oriented internally, taking that spiritual path so that we can overcome the flesh. And then we will be revealed as those who had the desire and became it, and are going to be revealed because they have the Father's revelation. Those are the ones that have the understanding and the ability to discern, because they chose to take that path and hunt and chase after that which they desired to produce the outcome of conquering the beast flesh. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. This word right here, they say, it's who or he who, but when you take a look at the root of it is just a mem noon. So we have a dalet in front of it. So again, the door. So those of us who have become doors and those of us who will enter the door, what are we entering into? This word here in Hebrew has two meanings. One of it means to be a part of, like stringed instruments, but it is also the word for manna. So when you look up the word manna, they've spelled it as, in English as, sorry, I get stuck. I speak Hebrew so much that I have a difficult time going back to English. M-A-N-N-A in English, but when you look it up in the Hebrew, it's just a mem nun. Man. So the door to the inward man, play on words, I guess, pun intended here. The door to the inner man is where we take the manna, that it becomes that hidden manna placed within us so that we can be a part of, like a stringed instrument. And it's that which we desired and hunt and chased after by going through the door of our inner man to our heart. And that's where we are placing the manna. And it's a mem nun. So it's the teachings of mother and father while we wrestle with it, while we're in the flesh. And that is to produce an heir, to sprout, to shoot forth growth. It's through our daily manna, by what we do when we dig out these scriptures. Because of what happens in our becoming, from becoming to being.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that gets raised at some point, yeah.
Of course it does in the very next word.
Real.
We have the word send.
And the powers acquired.
It's interesting here that this means to throw oneself forward, to strive, to order, and to send. So there is, as a sent one, once you've become from the process of becoming to being, then it's like this is crafted so much so that it says when you become the door, you're striving to become the door, but once you become the door, I'm going to send you out. I was sent, and I'm going to send you to do the same thing, because you're going to be the door. You're going to show people the door so that they can go through the consuming fire, entering their door of their heart so that they can raise themselves up from being poor and destitute to being a leader of first fruit, the head, the top, the capstone, walking in risen flesh, having conquered the beast nature, and now having the power of the right hand from the Father, in which they have a heart to give to those who are willing to receive, for those that hold their hand out to receive that which we freely give.
Mm-hmm.
So Yahshua is declaring what he was being sent to do, but then he was also declaring to us that after the act of celebrating, because we've become, that we have a job to do as well, that it's our job to turn around and teach once we've become. That's what the sent ones do, the ones who have been sent. Last two words, and this is where I really got rocked. This word right here means to die, obey, agree, follow, delivered up, complete, deliver, and completed. Do you guys have any idea what the root word would be on this one in Hebrew? It's okay if you don't. I'm just throwing it out there.
Sure, I would just take a flying. That's it. I have no idea. I just strung three words together. Okay.
Jesse, I love you. It's all good.
There's not even a noon in there. What am I saying?
It's okay. I just circled it for you.
Okay. Sheen, Lamed, Mem.
Shalom. This is the root for shalom. So the root of shalom is shalom, to be safe in mind, body, or state, to be or make completed, to be friendly, and to reciprocate. Now, when we see the duality in this, you see the word die, that Aramaic uses this word to also to die. But this means we're dying to self. This is where we are becoming one, and I'll show you this. So as we're being led in humility, because we're connected to Mother, we've been stripped bare. We have gone through the fire, because Ish is the word for fire. We've gone through the process of fire, where we were taught so that we can teach, and we tamed our beast and we yoked it, but then we burned it up through the fire, which was the process of the consuming nature to deal with our fallen flesh. And this is what allows us to become a teaching shepherd of light, who is given the staff of authority, because we went through the waters. We went through Mother and then went through Father. And notice the vowel point. I'm not doing all the vowel points, but notice the vowel point right underneath the mem. That's the chayrek. And the chayrek means those who have life.
Really?
It's chai, yep. So every time you see that, these are those who have life. And it's a resh kuf, so it's kai. It's het yod resh kuf. So these are those who have life, that were once poor and destitute, that were raised to be leaders, because they compressed light within the circle of time from that which was once hidden, that was now revealed, that they've reconciled, and they walk the middle path between both. Now we have the word, we have the symbol yod, which means that they give, but they also took a hold of that which was given to them by the Father, now walking in his power as a meek one, that is being revealed, that will give the power and means and directions of the Father to others, because these are the ones that have been delivered, that have become completed, that are now safe in mind, body, and estate. They are very friendly, and they reciprocate that which is brought to them. Because of what was given to them, they hand it out freely. And the very last word goes back to the same word right above it in the first line, on the top line, that has the dalet and the aleph in front. But now we see that his work as a teacher of light, because there's a lamed in front of it and a hay on the end of it, that he is the teacher of light, that teaches the ways of Mother and Father and is the door, so that those who are poor can then see that which is necessary to raise their flesh, so that the fountain of the deep would be opened, and they'd see the purpose of why they need to spiritually build their temple by going through the door of the inner man, where they will find what they need to deliver themselves, as if water from a very deep well, so that they can receive the Father's teaching and be revealed as those who are of the work of the teacher of light. What is so profound to me, and what hit me so hard, is that his work hasn't finished yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's still working. He is our good shepherd that is bringing the revelation of himself to us, because he divided himself in this teaching capacity of being of Mother and of Father. And he is declaring that he wasn't going to rest, that his work needed to continue going on. It needed to continue until we would all have the Father's revelation, and that it would be revealed to us, because he came as the Mother to show us the way, that no one comes to the Father but through him. But he still continues to teach. This is why he said, I must go so that the greater can come, so that the Spirit of Yahshua would be able to be with us. And so every time we dig out the Father's teaching and we look at it and we look at the cipher, he's with us, teaching us while we're doing this. He's still here because his work hasn't finished yet, until we are found in the likeness of him, doing the same thing but the greater, because it won't just be one. It'll be many of us that have become one. Many of us will be saying, I and my Father are one. He's not distant. He's right here. He's right now. He is Hasha. He is in the now element. That's why I laid that foundation with you guys in the beginning. That the time and our perpetuity is to go through that door, to be marked with the sign signature wave frequency of the Father. And Yahshua is still partnering with us as being the teaching shepherd to show us the purpose of what we need to do, how to build it, so that we can be revealed as those who were part of his work and became it. It hit me hard. It hit me really hard this morning because of my previous incarnation during that time period. And to realize that he's still here. And he's been assisting me, and he's been assisting all of us as we wrestle this out. That he didn't leave or forsake us. He's right here.
Yeah,
So,
it makes me think of when he's praying for his inner circle in John 16, where it's very intimate prayers for them, interceding for them. And that's just in the lower narrative. So what's in the higher?
because he's still interceding on our behalf, he's still working. But he's partnering in spirit now, and why it's such a greater measure than when he was just in flesh manifest. Because he could only be with them individually, like in that time space. And now that he's out of time space, he has the ability to be with each one of us on an intimate level. So for me, the reason why I'm still emotional about this, and I know people get uncomfortable with tears, but he's working intimately with us. If you want to get close to Yahshua, then jump into the Father's teaching. Yes, he's with us in Mother's teaching, but the intimacy lies in the place of the inner man of the heart, where the Word is knit within us so that we can become the Word made flesh, just like he was. And he's helping us. And so he's not far away. We lost Regina. That's all I really have to say and share. I'm kind of back in a mess again. Did that make sense to you, Jess? Father, I thank you for this time. Again, I thank you for your amazing realities and sharing with us our inheritance and what we get to go into and what we get to partner with and
Yes.
collaborate with. I love Jesse's word and utilization of that, but that's what we're doing, is we're collaborating in this work of our own becoming, but of the greater measure for all of humanity as we raise our consciousness level out of these deep places of despair and affliction that Ken spoke of, into the place where we actually have answers because we went through the affliction, and now we have the binah, we have the wisdom and the understanding because of what we did endure, and that your work is still being done in us, and you're still partnering and collaborating with us in this effort so that we can become the greater measure that you've always intended for us to become, that we would become those manifested sons and daughters that would bring change to the world and bring it into a greater place. And for that, we will be forever thankful. And may we be found doing these good works as following after your footsteps and becoming in the likeness of you, as the one that went before us and continues to do the work in us until you see it finished. And we lift your name. Amen.
Yes. Amen.
I love you guys. Jesse, I'll
Love
see you
you.
in the next room. Regina, I'll see you.
Yeah. Guys, enjoy the rest of your Shabbat. Yeah.